My name's Jessica and I'm a psychotherapist. I also teach mindfulness and movement and all sorts of other things that help us when we're feeling stressed or anxious or we've experienced trauma. And today I'm just doing a brief 45-minute recording to talk to you a little bit about stress, what happens in your brain and body, and we're going to do some things together. I hope you're going to join me trying some things that can help us to reset our nervous system, and over the long term, if practiced regularly, can actually help us be a bit more resilient to stress. So the first thing that I'm going to talk to you about is what your brain looks like under stress. And the simplest way to do that is to use your own hand. So if you take your hand up and actually kind of look at it face on, okay? So you look at your hand face on and I'm going to show you my hand, okay? So what we're going to look at is this part of the brain. If this is the brain, your hand is your brain. This palm part of the hand is the brain stem, and it's at the back of the head here. And it really just deals with really primal responses. So fight, flight, freeze, flop, friend. These are sort of really basic responses when we're feeling really scared. And that's all this part of the brain can do. And it evolved first a really, really long time ago. And then the next layer of the brain is a sort of central part of the brain. And for the sake of simplicity, you're going to fold your thumb over the palm of your hand, and you can see that there is the central part of the brain. It's the limbic system. And this kind of deals with memory and feelings and things like that, yeah? And then if you curl your fingers over your thumb, we're going to see the fingers as the frontal lobes. Now, this is the most recent part of the brain to evolve, and it does all the clever stuff. It does the thinking and reflecting and negotiating and working things out and planning. When you're experiencing a high degree of stress and things are really turbulent, as perhaps they are at the moment, we're all feeling really stressed or really anxious, what happens is this starts to go offline. And I kind of think of it as like the bars that you see on your mobile phone, you know, the bars of the internet, and it starts to go offline. And the more offline we go, the more stressed and frightened and anxious we get, the more we're just left with these really basic responses. We're not kind of left, we're often sort of like this. We're a little bit online, you know, maybe like this, but actually a lot of the time we're going completely offline and we're using different parts of the brain, and parts of the nervous system start being activated, and that's when we see ourselves finding it really hard to think, finding it hard to make reasonable decisions, and really starting to feel perhaps quite distressed or hopeless or down or angry. So there's lots of different ways that we might respond. And what happens is we often, well, I think in the West, we often think of the brain as something that happens, and everything that happens to us emotionally is something that happens up here in our heads, in our brains. But actually, we're a whole sort of mechanism, we're a whole body. And so we've got this nervous system. If we go back to that brain model, then we've got this nervous system that runs down into the body. So from the brain stem, you've got a nervous system that runs down into your body, and it reaches out to every organ and to the surfaces of your skin. But in terms of anxiety and stress, it's the autonomic nervous system that really gets activated when we're stressed, and that's the part of the nervous system that I want to kind of describe to you a little bit. So the autonomic nervous system, we can kind of look at it as existing on a ladder, as having three distinct parts to it, and they're very much related to these distinct parts of the brain as well. But for now, just imagine that you've got a ladder, and at the bottom of the ladder, you've got what they call a freeze state, which is kind of like a total collapse. Everything's gone offline. Our heart rate is usually really slow at this point. Our breath becomes really slow. We often feel quite hopeless, quite down. We might find it quite hard to think or even move. This is when we're sort of feeling quite foggy as well. We might sort of feel a bit disorientated or even dizzy. At its worst, we might even be quite floppy and sort of just feel like we need to lay on the floor or climb into bed. The next part of the nervous system, so it's actually called the dorsal vagal down there at the bottom, and those names don't really matter, but kind of think of it as a freeze state. It's the last resort for our nervous system. And the next part up, if we're thinking of it as like a ladder, if you climbed up the ladder a little little bit, you've got what people often refer to as fight and flight. And this can look like lots of things. It doesn't just look like literally fighting or literally running away. It can look like lots of different things. So in this part, when we're functioning from this part of the nervous system, and again, most of our higher executive functioning is going to be offline when we're here, we can think a little bit, but our thoughts are often very fearful or very angry. They're often very repetitive, very limited. We're often thinking quite racy thoughts. Things are happening quite quickly. We might be wanting to leave or wanting to get away. So we might not be literally fleeing and running away, but wishing we could. And like I say, this is fast. This often involves the digestive system also getting really racy, as opposed to the bottom of the ladder where it often really shuts down. And as the bottom of the ladder, the heart rate's really slow. You go up, the heart rate gets a lot faster. It starts really, really racing. Our breath can get quite shallow. We can feel quite sweaty. This is where anxiety lives. This is panic and anxiety and racing and fighting and feeling really out of control quite often. At the top of the ladder, so that's the kind of fight and flight, the sympathetic part of the nervous system it's called. At the top of the ladder is a part of the autonomic nervous system called the ventral vagal part of the nervous system. And this part is the most recently evolved, and this is us when we're really online. All the system, the brainstem's there supporting our need for survival, but so are the feelings and the memories and all the things that feed into us having a sense of who we are from moment to moment, but so is our executive functioning. We can think with clarity, we can see the big picture, we can negotiate, we can make pretty good informed decisions when we're in this place. And the key thing in this place is that we feel connected to ourselves. So we notice how we're feeling in our body and our emotional selves. We also feel connected to our environment, so we notice where we are in the world, the colours, the smells, the sounds. We also feel much more connected to other people. So this is the sort of best of social animals. This is when we're fully online and we're really, really connected. So this is the kind of, it's called the polyvagal ladder. Yeah, this ladder idea of thinking about the nervous system in this way. If you want to Google it or read more, it's called polyvagal theory, and it was a man called Stephen Porges, if you want to read more, who came up with this idea, and a woman called Deb Dana who came up with the ladder, the easier, less scientific way of looking at it. So that's the kind of ladder, and you can look at it now. It will hopefully appear up on your screen. And if you just take a moment to have a look at that ladder there, I'm hoping that what you'll be able to see is perhaps where you are right now, where you've been today, and where obviously you might hope to be up there at the top of the ladder. And you might be quite uncertain how to get up there, and that's okay. The other thing to know and to remember is that we all move up and down this ladder all the time, every day. There's nobody that doesn't, and there's nobody that kind of doesn't drop down. What we're really looking for is an ability to climb back up as quickly as possible. So we want to be able to notice where we are on that ladder. Have we dropped down to that really frozen place at the bottom? Are we in that middle place where we're feeling really anxious and frightened, or really angry and confrontational? Or are we up at the top? And if we're in any of those other two places, we're really thinking, how is it that I can get back up to the top? How do I get myself back up? Can I see where I am, and can I work out how to get back up? And that's what this little talk that I'm doing, or this little workshop that I'm doing, is all about. So there is a part of that autonomic nervous system, a particular nerve that I think of as being like a rope. It's a rope that we can kind of grab hold of to give us a bit of strength and a bit of support to climb back up that ladder as quickly as possible. And the name of that nerve is the vagus, and you may or may not have heard of it. It's vagus. So you can Google that as well. Google things like building vagal tone. It's kind of a really great little bit of research to understand how your body works and how you work under duress and in times of stress. Now, the vagus nerve if it's good and it's toned and it's strong, and when I say toned, it's not a muscle, but you can kind of think of it like a muscle. And the more you sort of work it out, you can think of it like an arm muscle that you can actually work out. The more you work it out, the stronger it gets. You can imagine a really thick, strong rope that you can grab hold of to climb up that ladder. So the things that I'm going to show you today are all things that sort of neuroscience and research shows help us not only build a stronger vagus, stronger vagal tone, but even if we're not there yet or we're not practicing things regularly, just doing them here and now should hopefully start to give you a little bit of a window into how to use these techniques to get yourself up and out of those really difficult places. There are 4 key things that can really help build vagal tone. One is movement, and it's not just any old movement, but certain sorts of movement. Slow movement that changes your body position in particular sorts of ways, movement that's aligned with your breathing, things like that. So it's quite often called mindful movement, and you'll see it in things like Feldenkrais or somatics or slow flow yoga, mindful yoga, restorative yoga. You'll often see this kind of really slow mindful movement. Qigong often uses it as well, Tai Chi. These are all ways to do movement with breathing. Breathing is one of the quickest and easiest ways, changing how you breathe, to take yourself out of any particular state. So depending on where you are on that ladder, you might do different sorts of breathing techniques. So if your breathing's really slow, you might actually want to move a little bit faster, breathe a little bit faster to get yourself up the ladder a little bit. If you're in that fight and flight place, you might really need to slow your heart rate, slow your breath down. So a lot of really great research has been done into things like treating PTSD and stuff where this kind of stress is really, really severe and we're really stuck with it on a day-to-day basis. And changing the way you breathe was seen in so many research studies to be the quickest and easiest way to start to change a lot of the symptoms of trauma. And it might not be for everybody, but it's certainly something that's really useful to give thought to for lots of us. So there's movement and there's breathing, and there's also sound. So the vagus responds really, really well to certain sorts of sound. And you can try all sorts of things like different sorts of music, and some people like sound baths and things like this, and some people not so much. For me, I find them quite overwhelming. They're not quite right for me. But if I can turn the volume down on it and listen to it myself, I quite like it. But one of the quickest and easiest ways to access sound is to actually make sounds yourself. So we're going to do just a little bit of that at the sort of the doing part of this workshop, which will come very soon. And last but not least is mindfulness. And mindfulness is huge nowadays, and a lot of people talk about it, and a lot of people say they find it really hard, and they've tried it on apps and at classes, and they've really struggled to engage with mindfulness. And I can certainly really relate to that myself as well. It took me a long time to get to a place where mindfulness could be a part of my life. And I hope that the way I might do it, the last thing that we'll do today, might sort of give you a little window into it isn't something that you can succeed at or fail at. It is something that really helps the human brain to settle quite often. What I will say about everything that we're going to do is, if it doesn't feel right for you, and it's not just a bit challenging, because a bit challenging is fine, but it's actually really uncomfortable and making you feel a bit worse, a bit more stressed or more anxious, don't do it, or kind of half do it, you know. So I'm often going to invite you to maybe consider closing your eyes, but I would also invite you to sort of just lower your eyelids or look out through your eyelashes, because sometimes if we're feeling really anxious, closing our eyes can actually make it feel worse, because we can feel all that, you know, racing heart rate and dry mouth. We can feel it more intensely with our eyes closed. So sometimes it's nice to do things like mindfulness with our eyes just lowered a little bit. But really listen to yourself, not to me, because I don't know you, I'm not there with you. If something doesn't feel comfortable, please don't do it. Just take a break or try something else, or kind of, like I say, halfway do it a little bit, but not the whole thing. So we're going to stand now together and actually have a go at some stuff. So let's stand. Okay, so we're standing, and one thing I'll say when we're standing is, if you can, try to keep the body, especially the torso part of the body, sort of relatively upright. And by that, what I mean is not kind of pulling the shoulders back, but kind of not doing this. Okay, so when we do this, what we're doing is we're shortening the space between the sort of pubic and hip bone and the ribs, and we're kind of squashing everything, and we're making it harder to breathe. And we're actually sending messages to the brain when we slump forward. We're sending messages to the brain that we're not safe. Okay, so when we do this, we're actually trying to close our protective places, and we're getting into this kind of space where what we're actually doing is kind of, we're wanting to protect ourselves from threat, like, you know, woolly mammoths and people running towards us and being really dangerous. And we might not be aware that that's what we're doing, but the message we're sending to our brain is, I'm not safe. So as soon as I stand like this, you know, I'm relaxed. I'm not like this is angry, isn't it? Oh, a fight, yeah? It's not tense. As soon as I'm kind of relaxed and open and upright, I'm sending a message to my brain that says, I feel okay. I don't see any threat here. I don't feel any threat here. So even if you are feeling anxious, just changing the way you stand is actually a really quick way to change what's happening in your brain. So they call it's bi-directional. Okay, so you think that your thoughts are the most important thing, but actually thinking is 6 seconds slower than everything else that happens in the body. So when we change what our body's doing, we're sending information back up to the brain saying, I'm okay. So you might be thinking about really stressful, unsettling things at the moment. You might be thinking about all sorts of really worrying things at the moment, or at any time in life really, but especially maybe at the moment. And when you think those kinds of thoughts, you send messages down that nervous system, you know, down into the body, and the heart rate goes up and the stomach starts getting activated, and that vagus nerve travels through your cheeks and your heart and your stomach and your spleen and your whole digestive tract. So you can see that the information goes down, and it tells all of those organs to start doing things differently and getting ready for running and fighting and for threat. And so we're going to try and send messages back up to the brain that say, no, right now in this moment, I'm okay. Right now in this moment, I'm okay. And the more times we send those messages, the more our brain gets them, the more it might start to have an opportunity to just even have windows of rest and calm. Whatever's going on in your life, whatever's going on in the world, we can always kind of find little windows of rest and calm if it's possible to just change what our body's doing, even for a moment. So remembering this upright thing, there's like lovely research done into what I think it was called the superhero study. Stand like a superhero for 2 minutes, and it actually changes all sorts of stuff in the brain. It's a great piece of research, I think, done at Stanford. So a really quick, what I call quick nervous system reset is you can do these 4 things, and you can do them anytime, and they will start to change what's happening in the nervous system. So we're upright, we're open, and we have our knees bent. Okay, we always have our knees bent. We're never locking our knees are bent. And what I want you to do, and I'm so glad, maybe you're at home alone, or you're not with too many people, you're only with people you know, because I want you to start kind of jiggling. And this isn't controlled jiggling, yeah? I'm bouncing my knees. And I'm letting, really, from the thighs up, my buttocks, my belly, my chest, my arms, my hands are kind of getting in on the action. You can hear my voice is getting funny sound. It's like when you're a kid. Yeah? So we're just going to breathe in through the nose and out. So we're shaking. You're shaking the fascia. Okay, the fascia is the stuff underneath the muscles. It connects the muscles to other tissues, to bones. And when we shake, we loosen everything. All that tension that came when you sent messages down to the body saying things were dangerous, we're releasing all that tension when we shake. Animals do this. All mammals do this. And for some reason, we've forgotten to do this when we're scared. Okay, you'll see, if you've got a dog or a cat, you'll see them have a little shake. Okay? And the next thing you'll always see them do is stretch and yawn. Okay, and it's If you see me yawn, I'm hoping you're going to have a yawn, okay? So we shake, we stretch like the cat or the dog, and we yawn. Okay, and the other thing that comes often with a yawn is we sigh. Okay, so we breathe in and we sigh. And I know people who have said to me they feel quite uncomfortable sighing. In fact, I think we can feel quite uncomfortable with all of these things. So sometimes it takes practice, and I'm actually hoping that being alone at home watching this, or just with one or two people, might give you a little bit of liberation to kind of just have a go. Either no one or not too many people can see you, so just kind of having a go and having a move, you know, yawning and stretching and sighing. So it's shake, yawn, stretch, sigh. Shake, yawn, stretch, sigh. These things have been shown time and time again to do something really fantastic for our nervous system. It resets our nervous system. Cats are probably one of the best animals to watch doing this. They do it all the time, all that stretching they do and the yawning they do, and just the little shakes that you see your dog do and stuff. This is really, really good for our bodies, for our health, for so many different systems in our body. So the other thing that we can do before we go back to taking a seat and just we're going to do a few other things. It's a really quick way to think about movement and breath. So we're not going to do huge amounts of movement and breathing today. We're going to do a little bit. But a really nice, simple one that's actually from Qigong is, again, kind of make sure your feet are really placed comfortably, you know, under your hip bones and your knees, nice and comfortable, bent knees, yeah, open body, remember. And we're going to breathe in as we raise our arms and breathe out as we lower them. And we're not really trying to change anything just yet, okay? We're just breathing in and out. And try, if you can, to do that through the nose, especially the in-breath, okay? And you're not following me. Don't follow me. Look down if you want. No, don't follow me. But you're seeing if you can kind of find a way to slow the breath down by slowing the movements down. And I would really invite you to practice these things, these standing things, kind of as often. I'll do it in the kitchen when I'm boiling the kettle, you know. It doesn't have to be something that you make hours for. You can just do it any time. So breathing in and breathing out. If you can make a little noise when you breathe. That's great. Nice noisy breathing. Like when you're starting to fall asleep, that kind of breathing. So we're going to take a seat again, and we're just going to do a few more things as we sort of move into this second half of the workshop seated. Okay, so we're all seated. And you might be sitting on your sofa or on a chair. You might be sitting on the floor, but best if you can have your feet flat on the floor. If you're sitting on the sofa or an armchair or a chair, that would be great. So the same thing applies when we're sitting as when I was standing about the torso. We're trying not to slump, you know, and it might not be that obvious, but just check out what's happening with your belly. You know, so is there plenty of space across the chest and around the belly? You know, but we're not pulling back. We're relaxed. Okay, and that's going to be different for different people, and it really depends what kind of body you've got and what's going on in your body. But as best as possible, as what's available to you in your body, see if you can be upright and open. Okay, so the first thing that I would always say that's quite quick, especially if you're at the bottom of the ladder and you're feeling a bit disconnected and actually finding it quite hard to move. So you might some days find that you want to move and you want to do the shaking and the yawning, but you're feeling kind of really, really despondent, and the body starts to feel quite frozen and we start to feel quite low. And quite a nice thing to do that starts to activate the nervous system and wake us up a little bit, but really gently, is to press your feet into the ground. So I don't know if you can see anything happening, but I'm just sort of pressing my feet, both of them, into the ground in a way that will allow some strength to come up my body. So my calves are becoming tense and my thighs are becoming tense, and my buttocks are becoming tense, and eventually my belly is also going to become a bit tense. So when you breathe in, you press your feet down, and when you breathe out, you let it go. Whatever your breathing pattern is. And this is a really nice point at which to kind of think, you don't have to look at the screen. Okay, you can just lower your eyes to just above the knees is a good place. Or look through your eyelashes is also quite nice. Or completely close the eyes. So we're just going to breathe in and press the feet into the ground. And breathe out and release. So we're breathing in and pressing the feet into the ground. And breathing out and releasing. And just starting to get that tension in the muscles right up to the belly, right up to the bottom of the belly. Just pressing and releasing. See if you can keep your shoulders back and your jaw relaxed while you do this. Might not be possible, just have a look. Okay. So still staying in that quite kind of relaxed place. You might just glance up for a moment to see what I'm doing, but seeing if maybe we're going to go quite quickly back into lowered eyes or closed eyes. So I find it easier to move to the edge of my chair a little bit, but wherever's comfortable for you. You're going to place your hand on your knees or on your thighs. And again, this is going to be little movements with breathing. Okay, so when we breathe in, and this is always in and out through the nose if that's available to you. Breathing in and out through the nose sends a message of relaxation. When we breathe in and out through the mouth, we're often gasping. And there's nothing kind of wrong with that if you're playing around with breathing, but what we're trying to do is settle the nervous system. So we're not going to do mouth breathing when we're trying to do that. So we're going to breathe in, and we're just going to pull our chest sort of forward a little bit. Not a lot, we're not pulling hard. If you do yoga, this isn't a full cat-cow, just a little bit. So we're breathing in, and then when we're breathing out, we are slumping a little bit, yeah? But we're not slumping, we're not letting go, it's not relaxed. We're just curling forward, creating a little C in our spine. So we're breathing in. You might look up a little bit, but not up to the ceiling. And we're breathing out. We're breathing in. And we're breathing out. Making a little C with the spine. Drawing the belly button to the spine. And then pulling the belly button and the chest forward, the shoulders go back, the chin goes up. Breathing in, drawing, pulling the belly button back, the chin goes down. Not all the way, just a little bit. Just doing 3 or 4 more of those in your own pace. And just staying now, coming to a place of stillness in your seat, keeping your eyes lowered or closed or looking through your eyelashes, whatever feels comfortable, and you can move between all 3 as well. Placing your hands face up in your lap on your thighs. We're going to open and close our hands in time to our breathing. And we're not going to make fists, we're not clenching, there's no muscle tension here. We're sort of opening, and when we close, our thumbs are just going over the top of our fingers, that's all, okay? So they're rested, and we're breathing in when we open, and we're breathing out when we close. So it's just the same thing. And there's no right pace, there's no wrong pace, there's no right or wrong way to do any of these things. There's just your breathing pattern. So if it's really fast, just notice that and see. Might it be possible to go even just a half a second longer on the in-breath? Maybe a little bit longer on the out-breath. Is that possible? And maybe it's not today. But just see if you can keep an eye on not slumping down into the belly. We're not pulling our shoulders back, but we're upright. Breathing in and breathing out. So we're not clenching the hands, it's just a really loose close. Just 2 or 3 more breaths like that now. Okay, so the other thing that I mentioned is sound. And so one of the ways to kind of make a sound that is comforting and useful to our vagal tone, and like I say, it's been looked at and measured in fantastic ways, that we can see the vagus really responds well to sound. But a lovely pitch, and it's going to be your pitch, and I can show you mine, is one that resonates around in the chest area. So if you place 2 hands over your chest, what we're looking for is a hum. So we're going to hum on the out breath. And again, this is another one of those funny things to do in front of lots of people. But like I say, I'm hoping that you're at home alone, or you're just with friends or family that you know well when you're doing this. If you're not, be brave and just have a go at doing something a bit silly. You know, we can all feel the same way when we first start doing it. So I'm going to show you, and then we'll do a few together. So when I breathe in through my nose, when I breathe out, I'm going to find a hum that resonates. I can feel it under my hands. So for me, it looks like this. And it's quite long. I've been doing it for a little while, and your hum might be a bit shorter, and that's like not a problem. We're all differently shaped, different lungs, different bellies. It's all good. So, but you're looking to feel it a little bit. If you have to really concentrate, a little bit under your hands. So we're breathing in together, and out we hum. And just keeping the eyes lowered or closed. Go at your own pace, don't follow me. If you get a tickly tongue, you've gone a bit too high. Deepen the pitch. One more. Okay, so I'm going to show a really quick little breathing technique before we do, just a few minutes really of mindfulness before we end. And it's a breathing technique that's particularly useful if you're finding it hard to breathe, if you're feeling that your breathing has got really shallow, you're feeling a little bit panicky. And a lot of people go, oh, you know, breathe deeply. And you're like, I can't, I can't breathe deeply. And so actually I would always encourage you, if you're struggling to breathe, if you're feeling like your breathing's getting a bit shallow, don't focus on your in-breath. In a sense, that almost creates more tension and more panic. You're focusing on the very thing that's become difficult. So I would encourage you to focus on the out-breath. And again, thinking about how you're sitting, but often when we feel really panicky, we can't yet. So in that place, don't worry too much. I like using my hands to kind of count off breaths. So if we were doing this for any length of time, you just keep counting off a different finger on each hand. So what I'm going to do at the end of each out breath is I'm going to uncurl a finger. Okay, so at the end of the first out breath, my thumb would go out, then 1, then 2, 3, 4, got my wrong fingers, not counting properly. 5 fingers, 1 thumb, 4 fingers. What we would do if we were feeling a bit panicky is we'd just carry on. We'd just carry on. Today we're just going to do 5 of these, okay? And you can just carry on. Again, never clenching the hands. This is a loose hold. The thumb is just over the nails of the fingers. And if we can, we're upright. It's always the quickest way to change things. Change how you're sitting and standing. Come lift the ribs away from the belly. Give yourself a bit of space to digest and feel rested and breathe fully. So this breath looks like this. I'm going to show it to you first, okay? We're going to breathe in through our nose. We're not going to worry about how long that is. And when we breathe out through our mouth, in fact, this time, we're going to purse our lips and we're going to breathe out as if we're breathing out through a straw. So there's only a really tiny, my mouth is going to look pretty funny. It's going to allow only a small amount of air out and it's going to make it longer. So I'm going to show you one and then we'll do 5 together. So I'm going to go. So that one was quite long because I'm feeling relatively relaxed. And if you were feeling a bit panicky, it might be a lot shorter. But that's the intention. And we're trying to get all of the oxygen out of the air, so out of the body. So when you get to the end of that breath, you're actually trying to squeeze your belly button. And imagine that you're squeezing yourself like a balloon to get all of the air out. And then just let the air come rushing in any way it likes through the nose. Okay, so let's give it a try. So we've got 5 breaths together. We're going to go in and out. Going in whenever you're ready. Don't follow my timing. Just 5 breaths. Eyes lowered or closed. For me, I've got one more. So this type of breathing slows things down. Quite often, if you were breathing okay, you might feel a little bit lightheaded. That's fine. You just got a little bit more oxygen in your body. That's okay. So just for the last few minutes of this workshop, I'd like you to really think about whether you're comfortable sitting how you're sitting. I'm actually going to make sure I'm leaning back a little bit because that always helps me. If I'm upright for too long, my lower back gets a bit tired. But being upright, so if that means wedging a bunch of cushions behind you or something so that you're still comfortable, do that. Sometimes the way we sit or the chairs we sit on, this chair is really, really made for me. I've got the right amount of room between the bottom of the chair and my feet. Sometimes it's nice to lift our feet up if you're relatively little like me. So sitting upright is quite important. We're going to move into just a little tiny mini bit of mindfulness. So I would ask that you either lower your eyes just above your knees, look through your eyelashes, or close your eyes completely. And it really is entirely up to you what you choose, and you can change your mind. So if your eyes are closed and you start to feel a bit too uncomfortable, that's going to be your measure. Please look up above your knees. And all I want you to do for now is just see that little pressure that we had earlier on in our feet. Just see if you can do a little mini version of that. So we're not trying to get the pressure right up our legs, just pressed enough so that you notice your feet on the floor. That's it, just notice your feet on the floor. And then, because you're moving your feet a tiny little bit, I wonder if you can notice your bottom and the backs of your thighs on the chair or the sofa you're sitting on. Can you notice the weight of yourself? So letting go of the movement in your feet now, can you just notice that you're sort of bearing down on your chair and your seat? There's a weight there. And wherever your hands are, they might be face up, they might be face down in your lap, they might be on the arms of a chair. Just notice that sensation, the weight of your arms hanging from your shoulders. Just take your mind's eye like a spotlight. We're just taking our attention to different things just for a moment. And it might be, if your eyes are closed or lowered, you're going to lose track of what I'm saying for a moment. You might disappear somewhere else, and that's okay. Part of mindfulness it's not about being in a meditative space where you feel super, super relaxed and focused. It's It's just about noticing your current experience with a bit of compassion and kindness, so we're not judging ourselves. We're not judging ourselves if our feet are uncomfortable or in pain. We're not making judgments if our mind is busy or this is hard. We're just noticing what's happening in our sensation for now, in our body. So the weight of our body on the chair, the arms hanging from the shoulders, the hands in the lap. And just see if you can notice the sensation of your clothes against your skin. Can you feel any sensation there? Maybe you can, maybe you can't. Is your hair long enough to feel any sensation of it against your cheek or your ear? And then take your attention to the inside of your mouth for a moment. Just rolling your tongue around inside your mouth. Whatever's there. This is taste. So we've got touch and we've got taste. These are the different sensations that are available to us. And it might not be a nice taste. It might be a sort of burnt taste if we had something not so great for lunch. That's okay. So this isn't about finding something good. It's just about finding yourself in this moment. No judgments. You can't get this wrong. Just noticing the inside of your mouth. And then wherever your eyes are, notice what you see. So if your eyes are looking above the knees, you might notice the floor, the pattern that's there. Just notice. If your eyes are closed, notice the colours and the lights and the shapes behind your eyelids. This is your sight. And if for whatever reason there are senses that are not available to you, just stick with one of the other ones for now. So then take your attention to your hearing, to sound. And this is such an easy place to make judgments, because we might hear cars or banging or people making noises that we don't like somewhere. Or it might be very quiet where you are. Is there a ticking of a clock? Can you hear your own breath? Small sounds inside a house, pipes creaking. So just notice that you have the capacity to hear if that's available to you. Not good sounds or bad sounds, just sounds. And just for a moment now, allow yourself to take attention to your thoughts. There might be lots, there might be none. Sometimes when we look for them, they kind of run and hide. If you have thoughts, allow them to be there. Say in your mind the word thought, and then let that thought go. And there might be another thought, and another thought, and another thought. And that's okay. So we've got sounds and sights, and sensations in our body, and smells, and thoughts. And we've also got emotion. So just let your attention settle for a moment on any emotions, any feelings that are there for you today. And they might not be great, so we won't stay there too long. Or they might be lovely, or they might be absent. Nothing that you sense or feel or think is wrong. There's no judgment. There's nothing to achieve. There is no way to do this moment wrong. You might be bored, you might be irritated by what you're doing. You might be worrying. There might be a real absence. All of it is okay. All of you is welcome. So when we sit with mindfulness, it can actually be useful just to let all of these things happen, allow these things to happen. We can label them: sight, sound, thought, feeling. And then we can let it go. See if there's any space in between, and maybe there's not, and that's okay. But we're just noticing ourselves in this present moment without any intention to fix anything or change anything, without any judgment that anything that's happening inside of ourselves right now is wrong. Just allowing things to happen, labeling them and letting them go. And then very slowly I'd like you to press your feet into the ground again. Maybe with the timing of your breath, pressing as you breathe in, releasing as you breathe out. And if you'd like to, I invite you to rub your hands together, still with the eyes lowered or closed. Rub your hands together, get a little bit of warmth there, a little bit of heat in your hands. And then cup your hands over your eyes. You're not touching your eyelids, you're just cupping your hands over your eyes. And then opening the eyes into the hands, opening the fingers. So we're seeing into the room, into the space, wherever you are today. Maybe having a couple of sighs, you know. Sighing is just such a lovely thing to do for the body, for the brain. So that's where I'm going to leave off today. I'm in the process of making a list of resources for things that are free and low cost and also charged from other people. Yoga teachers, somatic teachers, meditation people, and I'm going to put that list onto my website, which you'll see at the end. And I really wish you well, and I hope you enjoyed this. Okay, take care.